Welcome back to Walsall Fan TV. Last season we did predictions because Walsall weren't really in it, but we're certainly in and around it this season. So we're going to talk about the run-in, and we've got the knowledge of the EFL. Gabriel Sutton. Hi, Gabriel.
Hi, Simon. Great to see you. It feels like a while since I've done this, so looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think lots of things get in the way and that sort of stuff. We thought back in January that that Walsall was sort of sitting pretty, strolling the park, and it does feel a bit weird at the minute. I think is it worse having people chasing you than doing the chasing?
Well, the league table would say no. I think. Yeah, it definitely feels like a stage where Matt Sadler's got to try and find a formula for Walsall to go into the last 9 games and be comfortable that you get a fair points tally from. I don't think you need a crazy points tally from the last 9 games to get automatic promotion, because you look at the 5 teams below you that are in automatic promotion contention. Other than Bradford, I don't think any of them are really in form, and even Bradford had lost back-to-back games before that 4-1 thumping of Colchester. So you look at Notts County, I think it might be 1 win in 6 for them. You look at Port Vale even had drawn a lot of games recently. Doncaster, the same, they dropped points. It does Wimbledon even lost the 2-goal lead at the weekend against Barrow. So it does feel like there are other teams that have been slipping up that have maybe given Walsall a little bit of grace period. However, that grace period is probably coming towards an end, and now it's time for Walsall to find another magic formula and find some solutions. Yeah,
I did think Colchester were going to make a run for the top 3. That's perhaps one of the first teams to look at, really. Until Bradford beat them, I had got visions of them going all the way to the title, the way they've been playing. They've got 8 games to play, 4 at home, 4 away, 4 big games in that. First of those is at home to Grimsby. Then they've got home to Notts County, home to Crewe, away to Doncaster. And that's some tough stuff for Colchester. Do you think they can get into the playoffs? And I suppose we'll have to see how they react to that defeat, I guess.
I think it'll be them or Grimsby. Been really impressed with the Mariners this season under David Artell. I think they've made some huge strides. Colchester as well. Both, by the way, these are 2 teams that stayed up, in I think 21st and 22nd last season, and now all of a sudden they're either side of the playoff dotted line. So they've made some real strides. And yeah, really big fan. 2 great managers as well. Huge fan of David Artell at Grimsby. I really like Danny Cowley at Colchester as well. So I think one of them's going to finish in the top 7.
Crewe seem to have, similar to Walsall, they've had a bit of a bad run, but obviously Walsall had the buffer, and Crewe didn't. We've got Crewe away last match of the season, so that's going to be an interesting one. But
it's going to be interesting to see, isn't it, Simon, whether Crewe are still going to be in the playoff scramble at that stage, or whether they're out of it or already in it. I mean, that's going to make a big difference.
Well, when we look at what Crewe have got to do, they've got 5 home games out of their remaining 8, which is a help. They've got 5 big games in those. Home to Port Vale, home to Grimsby, away to Bradford. That's the next 3 games. That's going to sort of tell us a lot. Then they're Colchester, and then home to Walsall, of course.
Why?
So that's a tough. I think the next 3 games, obviously Walsall's next 3 games are sort of really going to tell us whether Walsall are going to still be there or not.
But you know what, Simon? I think, let's say, if Walsall could take 4 or 5 points from those next 3 games, I think that would be a decent outcome, because if you look at your running, off the top of my head, I think you've got Barrow. I know you've got Harrogate.
We got Wimbledon, Doncaster, Port Vale, then Barrow, Harrogate, Newport away, Accrington at home, then Crewe away.
See, that's what I'm getting at. So 4 of the last 5 games would be quote unquote favourable on paper.
Yeah.
Plus, you never know, Crew, if they're out of the playoffs by that stage, that might end up being a favourable fixture as well. So I would say at least 4 of the last 5 games you'd mark as favourable on paper. So you don't need to get an amazing points return from the next 3 games. I think 4 or 5 points would do absolutely fine. It's just about making sure that you're in a solid position going into those last 5 games where I would expect you to tick over a healthy number of points and maybe get another 10 points or so from the last 5.
Yeah, Walsall, I think, have sort of got it together a little bit in the last couple of games. But the Wimbledon game on Saturday is absolutely huge for Wimbledon and for Walsall. Even though Wimbledon are in third with Port Vale and Doncaster with a game in hand, they're effectively the team in fourth, aren't they?
So what's the solution, Simon? I really want to hear this from you. It's clear to me that there's 2 massive problems from what I can see that Walsall have had. One is that Nathan Lowe's been recalled. Quality footballer, brings so many different attributes. You're obviously going to miss a player of his quality. The second one would be, I think for a long time, Matt Sadler maybe hesitated to freshen things up. And so players like Connor Barrett, who was unplayable in the first half of the season, maybe suffered a bit of fatigue. So there's a couple of things like that. But what I'm wondering is, what's the solution? How do Walsall find a formula going into the last 9 games to make sure that you tick off the points that you need? Is it putting an Ethan Wheatley or a Levi Amanci alongside Jamil Matt rather than another similar type of striker in Ellis Harrison? Is it bringing in 1 or 2 fresh faces like you did at Bromley? What do you see the answer to be?
Well, I think quite often Matt Sadler, I think some would say, has got lucky where he's had an injury that's forced him to change things. Ellis Harrison's got injured. He pulled his hamstring against Bromley. So that's forced him to change it. But rather than putting Levi Amanci in, he put Adoma in. And a lot of the Walsall fans on my fan reactions go, why do you keep playing Adoma up front? So that's a frustrating one.
Do you think, Simon, that there should be some criticism levelled at the recruitment team for not finding a similar profile of striker to Nathan Lowe? Because you'd hoped that Ethan Wheatley could be that. It's obviously been that he either struggled with the intensity of senior football or certain aspects of the switch that's made it difficult for him. But then you've also signed Harrison, who's not a similar type of striker. He would be more of a backup to Jamil Matt, I would have thought.
Well, I thought backup to Jamil Matt is what he came in for.
Yeah, well, that's what I would have guessed as well. And then Levi Amanci, who's very raw, wasn't even starting for Bromley. So, I mean, fair play to him for getting a goal or 2 and making his presence felt with his pace and liveliness. But is he really going to move the needle in terms of a Nathan Lowe replacement? So it does feel like that's an area that's just a bit of a gaping hole at the moment.
I'm looking positively at Ethan Wheatley. The games he was thrown into, I think was a little bit harsh on him.
Right.
He came on when Jamil Matt got injured against Bradford. The game was already going away from us at that point. And I think he was like rabbit in the headlights almost. And then Fleetwood was a similar game. And then the following game at home against Salford, I think he'd have done much better if Jamil Matt had been alongside him. But not having Jamil Matt there, I think that's a big part of Walsall's presence was missing. And I think that would have hit his confidence coming into that, because he came into Walsall, and one of the joys of coming to Walsall is coming into a team that were top of the league on great form, and then since he's been here, it's not been great form, obviously. But I think he's had time to settle now, and I think he understands more what things are about. He did make the bench against Bromley, didn't get on, but he made the bench. So I think the fact that he was on the bench tells us he's more up to speed now with what's required. I think he would have played on Saturday or had minutes on Saturday if he hadn't been on international duty. But the fact that he went off to play England under 21s and scored, nice goal too, one touch control and then placed it home. I think he can have a part to play in the running. So maybe not Nathan Lowe, but someone who can find the net in tight games. I'd like to, if he gets the chance, I think he could perhaps do some damage there. The biggest, I think people have sort of not mentioned it so much. I've mentioned it a couple of times. For me, the intensity that Walsall have played with dropped off massively when George Hall and Jack Earing got injured.
Hang on though, George Hall wasn't really starting for you, was it?
He had started. He burst his way into the team, but I mean equally. But now what I'm saying is he was coming off the bench with Jack Earing for the last quarter when perhaps Jellison Lakin was starting to tire a little bit.
I see, that makes sense.
And it was that intensity that was wiping away teams effectively. You're up against.
So you felt like it helped Jellison Lakin and Stirk that there was another midfielder coming on for Jellison Lakin towards the end of games to sort of split the workload a bit, and without that it's become a bit heavy, do you think?
Well, yeah, without that you've got the likes of Jellison Lakin trying to get him to play 90 minutes.
It's interesting actually, Sam, because I'd looked at Walsall in the first half of the season and I had felt from a couple of angles maybe you could get at them, because I think there's probably, you don't really have that experienced centre half because of the form of, you know, some of these talented defenders, and also Taylor Allen doing so well in that left centre back spot, and also attacking wing backs possibly leaving you a little bit exposed in transitions like we saw against Fleetwood in October. However, what I would say is that in the first up until January, this sort of little feeling of, oh, maybe you could get at Walsall was massively outweighed by the sheer intensity that you've talked about, where you're such a good pressing side, so strong out of possession, really clear patterns of play. So the threat that you posed and the intensity of your game outweighed any sort of niggling defensive imperfections. Whereas without that intensity and without some of those patterns of play, and with players being a little like half a yard off the pace, maybe that's exposed some of those defensive imperfections that might not have been if you'd been able to keep up that intensity.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. Connor Barrett, because Connor Barrett had done so well, he had been found out and everybody had been doubling up on him. But he'd sort of not had a break. I think the only way he got a break was by being suspended, so he missed the last game. He's going to be missing for the Wimbledon game. But Nathan Asimwe is one of the better loan signings from January, because he's got experience playing in the
Charlton, wasn't he?
He's on loan from Charlton, and he did well. He did well on Saturday, so I'm quite comfortable that he'll be okay against Wimbledon. Again in that right wing back slot, so that's given us a bit more confidence there. Alfie Chang finally got on the pitch against Gillingham and looked a class above, absolute class above. George Hall is back in the building now. He's back from Blues, so I'm not sure whether he's ready to start yet. I think they're both right-footed though, aren't they? I don't know whether you can confirm that.
Yeah, possibly. So, I mean, that's good that you've got a bit more midfield depth.
Yeah, but I think they'll be both competing for the same role, really. So,
I mean, maybe Alfie Chang might operate slightly deeper than George Hall. I think George Hall can play as an 8 or a 10, whereas I think Alfie Chang can operate a bit deeper.
Yeah, 6 or an 8 sort of thing. Yeah. Alfie Chang, I think after his cameo, you would think he'd definitely be on the bench again on Saturday when some of the returning internationals recheck in, sort of thing. But I just wonder whether Matt Sadler actually do that. But I mean, from my point of view, it looked like he was the guy that was going to unlock them. We had more joy from him, and his set piece delivery almost bore fruit. in the last couple of minutes. So so that's another positive. That's another positive where that could perhaps do it. So I think we've got the re-emergence of Ethan Wheatley, Alfie Chang coming to the fore, maybe George Hall in that frame as well. So hopefully that's gonna help. And Connor Barrett having a break will sort of bring him back with more intensity for the Doncaster game, which again is another massive game for Walsall.
Yeah, I think it's a huge difference.
Yeah, it's I'd sooner be at the top. I'd sooner be at the top than chasing at this stage. But I'd like to have had a couple more wins. If we could have, like, Jamil Matt had a great header from like 2 yards out, and their keeper on Saturday. Like, if we'd have put that away, we'd have been sort of in a much happier position. It's all got very tight, hasn't it? We touched on Colchester and Grimsby. They're competing for playoffs. Probably just get there in front of Crewe, I think. Notts County, they've got a reasonable running, haven't they? 4 home games and only 3 big ties. Away to Colchester, away to Bradford, and then at home to Doncaster, last match of the season. So a lot of these teams below us are playing each other, and that's going to help as long as Walsall are getting enough points. How many more wins do you think Walsall need?
So remind me how many points you got at the moment.
We're on 70 points.
70 points. So I think, so I would say that, I mean, we can probably if you want to do a live calculation, I can get my calculator up here. So Port Vale, on points per game, Port Vale have got 64 points from 37. So as things stand, they would go up on points per game. So 64 divided by 37 is 1.72 times that by 46. That's 80 points. So go on.
Let me just pause you for just 1 second.
All right.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, it's just in the garage. Just after the garage, you'll see where the darts are. Over there. Nice one. Champion. Sorry about that.
No worries. We still rolling?
Yeah, we're still rolling. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I would say it's my estimate is that it's going to take about 8 points to get automatic promotion, which is good news for Walsall because you're already on 70 points. And I think that you've got a good chance of getting around 10 points from the last 5 games based on the fixtures. So I think if you can tick off 4 or 5 points from the next 3, say, then I think you'll be in an excellent position. So
if we can get past 80 points, Bradford need 11. I think Bradford are likely to get 11, aren't they? Wimbledon would need 16 points. That's perhaps a tougher one, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's a tougher one. Port Vale. Again, Port Vale have got an extra game, but they need 16 points.
Yeah. And Doncaster would need 17 points from 9 games.
Yeah, Doncaster 17 points from 9 games. And they've got 5 real tough games, Doncaster. Home to Carlisle won't be that easy. Then the home to Walsall. Away to Cheltenham, that's another tough one. Then at home to Wimbledon. Then they've got Salford and Tranmere away, Colchester at home, Bradford at home, then Notts County away. That is a tough. They've got 5 home games, but they're really tough 5 home games. Are they going to get another 17 points?
So that would be the one reason to maybe doubt Doncaster at the moment, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I suppose
I mean, I watched I went to Port Vale on Saturday to watch them beat Morecambe 1-0. You can see that they're going to pick up a few points because of their individual quality. It was a lovely strike from Ronan Curtis to win it. You can definitely see Ben Garrity making an impact off the bench as well. They've got some really good players and really strong squad depth. However, as a cohesive unit, I'm not necessarily quite sold on them. So I'm not sure that they're going to make. I'm not sure they're going to make up that gap.
So 16 points is a lot to get, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Notts County.
They've had a bit of a drop off in form. It looks like it might be playoffs for Notts County.
Yeah. Well, they need 18 points. 18 points. Three tough games they've got: away to Colchester, away to Bradford, and at home to Doncaster.
Yeah.
So that's some tough ones. So 10 points for Walsall. That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you'd be hoping to get maybe a few more than that, but again, I think it just shows you, you've put yourselves in a wonderful position, and I would hope that Walsall fans can get behind Matt Sadler, because I know that the performances in the last couple of months have been disappointing. I know that there's some questions to level at Matt in terms of certain decisions, and I do understand that. At the same time, he's done phenomenal work up until January. He's devised a really strong blueprint that's got Walsall extraordinary results. They're going through a little bit of a wobble at the moment. I think this is the point, more than any time when Walsall were on this marvellous winning run and top of the league and this, that and the other. This is the time for me where the club needs the fans, where the manager needs the fans. And as much as we can, I think at the end of the season, if Walsall haven't won promotion, at that point, of course, you could ask the questions. But I think, from my point of view, from an outside perspective, I think for now, support your manager. He's done brilliant work for the most part this season, and I think he deserves the support for the run. And I hope people can galvanise and get behind him.
Yeah, I think you can understand where the fans are nervous because of such a lead we had. But as you say, you have to step back and think. At the start of the season, we were thinking sort of 13th, 14th.
You would have been absolutely over the moon, Simon, to have this position before the start of the season.
And as John Sadler said there, 3 draws from the next 3 would leave us needing 7 points from the last 5 games. And for me, I was looking at the Wimbledon game. Wimbledon currently 6 points behind us, and we know Wimbledon are going to be close. If we win on Saturday, that puts us 9 points above Wimbledon, and they're not going to catch us then.
Yeah.
And so if we take them out of the equation, then you're almost there, aren't you? And then if we get a point at Doncaster, and then we generally beat Port Vale, he says. if we get 7 points out of that, would be.
I remember Tom Pope scored a header at the Bescott in 2015, though, so they did get the better of you that time.
Occasionally, yeah. It's such a tense game, isn't it? But you'd rather have it that way than be around where Fleetwood are and Swindon and Newport, and sort of having nothing to play for at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt Sadler, though, he's I had a meeting. They did an academy spotlight, and we talked through that. Really good video, worth grabbing and having a look at. It's just going live this afternoon. Everything in the club is set up for the style of play, for the high press, the intensity, the lots of energy. And that's the way Walsall are going to play, and maintaining all that together and keeping that vision, regardless of the manager. That is the way we're going to play, and that's come from the Travella group. That's it. We're not going to have a manager who's going to change our style. We're going to keep the same way and keep going.
And that's what I really like about Travella, Simon, because even when it wasn't quite showing on the pitch, where you stayed in mid-table in League Two for a couple of years after Travella took over, and people weren't over the moon with the kind of instant impact, if you like. I always felt like what they'd communicated, the clear strategy that they had, I felt like, yes, these are the people to take Walsall forward. So in that sense, it doesn't really surprise me that this season you've gone on to do what you have, and hopefully you can finish the job.
So last season we sort of dropped away a little bit at the end, where we should have maybe made playoffs, and we just ended just outside. So that was frustrating. But I think Matt Sadler should have learnt from that. And having Richard O'Kelly and Gary Waddock alongside him, he's got the experienced guys alongside him. But at times it does feel that he's a bit nervous to make changes. But he did make the changes on Saturday. Maybe a little bit late, some would say. But it's one of them, isn't it? We sort of...
I mean, on the other hand, I also quite like that there's a manager that isn't going to panic, because there's also teams that have suffered big drops in form when their manager tries to make changes just for the sake of changes without real confidence that they're actually going to make a difference. So you've got a template there that's got you into this wonderful position, and it's understandable that he's been nervous to go too far away from that. It's understandable. I'm sure Matt wouldn't sit here and think over the last 13 games I've got everything right, because the results dictate that there's always something more that you could be doing. But at the same time, I think you've got to sort of try and remember the bigger picture a little bit, and sort of say, look, this is a manager that's done a wonderful job for us this season. Some of the football Walsall have been playing for much of the campaign has been the best, from my point of view, the best that I've seen down at the Bescot for a long time, probably since the Dean Smith days. And so, yes, this has been a bit of a rocky period, but Walsall are still top of the league and 6 points clear. Do you know what I mean? So, it's I think he's done a great job on balance this season, and I hope that you can finish the job.
Yeah, I was going to say it's one of those. Full of Maniac saying there may be a tactical change at this stage of the season, because we may be a little bit predictable now. But I think that would be a risk, wouldn't it, to sort of try and sort of suddenly go to 4 at the back? That's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah, I think for me it's more about fresh legs. Can Walsall bring in players? Because let's not forget there was Connor Barrett, brilliant form for the first 3 months of the season. You could argue he dropped off before Walsall's overall form dropped off. So I still think that Walsall, with their current strategy, can find the means to keep opponents guessing, even when individual players aren't quite at the level they were. You look at for instance, the left-sided combination play between Taylor Allen, Liam Gordon, and Charlie Lakin. I think that can be very dangerous sometimes as well. So yeah, I think you have got a strategy that can keep opponents guessing. Obviously, it's going to be tough without Lowe. Hopefully, Ethan Wheatley can come back in and be that little bit of a difference maker that you're crying out for at the moment.
I think Ethan Wheatley's more of a finisher. But if you get him into position, if you get him into the position in front of goal, I think he's going to finish, and that could be the difference we need, because I think we've got close to it. But it's just
he's quick. He's meant to be quick as well, isn't he, Ethan Wheatley?
He's got decent pace to him, and with Taylor Allen and Evan Weir, some of the balls they can put in, I'm sure he can get on the end of those.
Yeah. And, absolutely. So hopefully, that's the other thing. I think it's really important that you've got one forward who can stretch the line. So even if they're not quite as good as Lowe was in terms of dropping in and linking play, if they can stretch the line and offer that finishing ability, then that's obviously going to make a difference, and that's going to help. Help the midfield as well.
Yeah, I think that's the problem when he plays Adoma and Jamil Matt up front. You've not got massive pace. Saying that, Adoma is still fairly quick for 30.
Do you know what I saw? Do you remember the game against Tranmere where Adoma was at right wing back? I think he might have come off the bench in that one.
Yeah.
And it was like for one of the goals that was just showed his left back a clean pair of heels. So I think he's got it in him. Maybe not quite to the same extent that not quite as explosively as he used to have.
Yeah, I think Levi Amanchi, he's another one of those. The goal against Bromley was a remarkable finish.
Yeah, it could be a big end to the season for him as well. So him or Wheatley hopefully can make a difference, and you can find some answers in there.
We're hoping so. Right then, we leave it there, and maybe we talk again in after these 3 games and see whether we still think the same. We might be much happier after the 3 games, but that's certainly going to be big for a lot of teams. Bradford, I've got to go to Port Vale and then home to Crewe.
You sounded really enthusiastic about going to Port Vale.
For Bradford going to Port Vale, yeah, that is good news. Yeah, Swindon and Harrogate, easier couple of games for Wimbledon, perhaps, after they played us. And then what's the others? Let's just, Doncaster, Carlisle at home. I think that's a tough one for them because Carlisle have really picked up, haven't they? And then they're going to go to Cheltenham and then Wimbledon, Notts County, Newport, MK, Colchester. Yeah, it's going to be a key week. Exciting. It's better to be in this end. Last season, the season before last, we were worried about dropping out the league. So it's nice to be looking on the joyous end rather than the fearful end. Right then, Walsall Fan TV, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming on, Gab. Speak to you soon. Cheers, mate. Chewing the pain. Cheers. Nice one.